Okay, so here the Allegheny Journal is already enjoying a good conversation with T. Graham Brown. I guess everybody refers to him as T. And T, you just told us something really funny. You at a fairly young age, you decided to go to Nashville and make your way in the music business. And would you say Sheila said, "Hey, I really want you to do this"?
Yeah, well, Sheila had finished up her master's work at Georgia at the university. I went to the University of Georgia, and Sheila went to the University of Georgia. And Sheila was going to be a veterinarian, and she had already been admitted to vet school and was ready to start her studies in vet school. She came home to the farm. We were living on our farm, and she came home and said, "We need to move to Nashville, because if we don't go, you're going to be second guessing yourself the rest of your life." So she basically made me move to Nashville because I was scared to death.
And so is it, looking at Wikipedia, we try to do a little background, it's got to be the most competitive market, music market, if not in the United States, the world. So you may not have had immediate success, but so you did some jingles and trying to feel your way around before you really started trying to sell some of your creations?
Well, I started singing songwriter demos
Okay.
to get studio experience. And I got to be like the main demo singer in Nashville. Vince was still singing a few demos. There was a core group of us that were getting all the phone calls to sing these songwriter demos. So when the publishing companies would pitch those songs around Music Row, they would want to know who the guy singing was, and it was me. And that's how I got my first record deal with Capitol Records, is from singing those demos. It was kind of like free advertising. And then I started singing commercials, and this was before I wound up on Capitol Records. But I sang so many commercials, I got to be the go-to guy. If any company wanted a raspy voice, or if any of these ad agencies wanted somebody with a raspy voice, they'd call me. So I guess I've sung as many jingles as anybody ever. I've done Coca-Cola and 7-Up, Mountain Dew, and Dr. Pepper, and Budweiser, Stroh's, Miller, Coors, Hardee's, McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell, Wendy's, every car and truck. I even did Sometimes You Feel Like a Nut, Sometimes You Don't. I did that for 7 years. So I've done a lot of different jingles for sure.
And so all along the way, I mean, I don't know how many artists can say that they have composed and or performed 13 albums. What is that, since like 1973 or so? That's quite an achievement in itself.
Well, the first real album I had, or first real recording that I made that was of any consequence, was in 1984. That's after I'd signed with Capitol, and we did an album. They put out a single on me that barely cracked the top 40, and then they put out that song "I Tell It Like It Used to Be," and it was a big hit. So while "I Tell It Like It Used to Be" was going up the charts, I went down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and finished my debut album. And then it went on to have a couple more. It had a couple of number ones on it, and it got me going.
And didn't you also have a song, "I Wish That I Could Hurt That Way Again"? Wasn't that another real popular one?
Yeah, it was. I don't know how far up the charts it went, but it was definitely a top 10, maybe a top 5. I don't know. It was a big hit.
So where did Hell and High Water come from? What made you come up with that title and that experience?
Well, there was a guy named Alex Harvey. He was a songwriter and actor and performer, just awesome talent. And we were writing for the same publishing company and playing each other's songs that we had written. And he invited me to come to his house and write. Alex was really famous. He wrote Delta Dawn for Tanya, and he wrote a song called Reuben James that Kenny Rogers had a big hit on. And he had written a couple of pop hits for people, and he was really a famous songwriter, and I was really intimidated by him. This was before I got a record deal. And we went down in his basement one day and wrote Hell and High Water. And it was pretty quick song too. Usually songs take a long time to write. I mean, the really good ones do. But this one came probably in an hour or less.
Wow.
But you know what, man? I was so scared at that time. I was so insecure as a writer. I figured any song that had my name on it couldn't be that good.
Well, you know, for a guy that's initially scared, having done more than 300 performances and being invited to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry, you must have gotten over that fear.
Oh, I got over that fear pretty fast. When I signed with Capitol, they threw me out on tour with Kenny Rogers opening his shows, and I went from playing little bars, 50 people, something like that, to being in front of 20,000 people. I'm talking about, it was like night and day. They just threw me out there, and I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out the very first night. So it was a great learning experience. It was wonderful. Kenny Rogers was so good to me, and at that time, he was as big as anything on the planet. I mean, he was a huge, huge star, selling out arenas everywhere.
Yeah, that must have been a rush to have done that. Well, you're going to be at the Historic Masonic Theatre on Saturday, November 16th at 7 p.m. And this crowd from the Allegheny Highlands is going to love to hear you. I mean, they're really looking forward to your performance. And I guess you've been, traveling quite a bit. I mean, trying to contact you, it was Central Time to Eastern Time here. So what have you been doing in the last couple of months?
Wow, I've been busy. I've been doing shows out on the road, doing the Grand Ole Opry a lot. Just having fun, really. My life is pretty fun. Sheila and I have been together 46 years, and we just do what we want to do. I mean, I'm 70 years old. People don't tell me what to do. I get to do what I want to. And like, let me preface, I'm going to tell you something, but let me preface it with, I took a virtual tour of the Masonic Theater. Man, that's going to be a great place to work, it looks like. I can't wait. Sheila was telling me that I went to Clifton Forge one time, and would it have been possible for me to have been there in the 90s at playing on a football field? Does that sound like that would be right, or is that wrong?
Well, there's, it could have been in Covington or Clifton Forge. I mean, what were you playing with a band or what? I mean, we could do a little research and try to figure out.
Yeah, it would have been T. Graham Brown, and I would have brought my band with me. But I just, for some reason, Clifton Forge rang a bell in my head. So I might just be dreaming. I don't know.
Tell us, if I'm out in the crowd, and guys that have done all these performances, hundreds of performances like yours, one of the questions I've been curious about is, what song, and since you've sung so many times, is there one that you particularly like to perform? Now, it's one thing to please the audience with, their favorites, but how about the one that you personally like the most?
Well, I'm on a mission from God to help people that are addicted and to educate people about mental illness. I used to have a problem with drugs and alcohol, and I also finally got diagnosed as bipolar, and Sheila made sure I got a good doctor. We were trying to figure out what was made me act so crazy, and so I take drugs every day that allow me to live a normal life. So I tell people about that in every show I do. I tell people about my struggles with addiction and tell them about mental illness. And then I sing a song I wrote called Wine into Water, which is a prayer to get sober. That's I wrote it in 1995, and it's gone around the world. It's become a huge. It never was a big hit, but it's through word of mouth. It's just gone around the world as a recovery song, and somebody put it on YouTube years ago, and it's had almost 8 million views. You know, from people that are hurting and are trying to deal with addiction. And I get a lot of comments on there. There's a couple of thousand comments from people that it's helped them get sober. So that's my favorite song I've ever written, and that's my favorite one to do. But I do all the hits that people expect to hear. Then I'll throw in a couple of gospel songs probably. I'll throw in a couple of soul songs. I just put out an album called From Memphis to Muscle Shoals, and I cut 14 1960s soul songs down in Muscle Shoals and have a bunch of guests on it. Dwight Yoakam and Tanya and Winona and Sammy Hagar and on and
Wow.
on. There's 11 duets on it. And it came out a couple of months ago and debuted at #1 on the blues album chart. So that made me feel good, having a #1 album at my age. And so the Grand Ole Opry has happened this year, and the album being a hit's happened this year, and all things good. You know, it's I just want to feel relevant, and I want to help people.
You know, I wondered when you were performing for students at the University of Georgia way back when, and what was it that Sheila saw in you? You may have seen it, but she helped convince you that you need to move from rural Georgia to go and take on the crowd in Nashville. I wonder what it was that Sheila saw in you that maybe initially you didn't even see in yourself.
Golly, I don't know. I was really determined back then, but I was really scared to leave my little cocoon in Athens and Atlanta, around that area. I guess I was scared that I was going to fail, but Sheila believed in me, and we had a '59 Ford and a '63 Volkswagen, and we loaded it up and moved to Nashville. Never looked back. She got a job. She went from going to school making straight A's to working in a department store all day long and waiting on tables at a restaurant at night so that I could go up and down Music Road singing demos for $20 a pop. And there was no way I could have supported myself. For the money that I was making, it wouldn't have come close. So Sheila had to work to, so we could pay our rent and eat and everything.
What a great story. What a great story. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. So it all happened on Saturday, November 16th at 7 p.m. And we thank you for making multiple efforts and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thanks for having me. I just want us to have a good crowd and invite everybody out. It's going to be a great show. Nobody ever leaves our show disappointed. People usually end our show standing up applauding, and we really entertain people. It'll be fun, and I urge people to come out. That looks, like I said, it looks like a great facility, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yes, sir.